I'm Regular Zach, and this is my limited set review for the Magic the Gathering Final Fantasy set. Emphasis on limited Magic, which means draft and sealed. So I'm not talking about any Commander cards or how the cards play in Commander are constructed or standard, anything like that. We are just talking about draft and sealed. Now, today I'm going to be looking at all the gold cards, the multicolor cards of the set, and we are going to be putting them on a rating scale from A to F. So A's are bombs. These are the best cards in the set. The strongest ones, the ones we want to pick first. If we see these in like pick 2 or 3, we go crazy because we can't believe anyone would pass us such a sweet bomb A level card. B's are great cards. These are ones that pull you into their colors actively, are really strong cards and ones that you hope to be filling your entire deck with. C's are all, pretty solid. This is what the majority of your deck will be. They're totally fine. Sometimes the C plus range can kind of muddle into the B minus range a little bit, but you're going to have a lot of C's in your deck, and you're good playing with them. D's are not great. You hope you never really have to put this in your deck, but you sometimes will, and in the really bad scenarios your deck is going to be filled with these and you're going to be extremely unhappy. So we hope to stay away from D's. And then F's are just like absolutely unplayable. You can't even put them in your deck because they don't even work, they don't function correctly, or they're just completely useless. So hope we don't see too many of those. But let's start us off. We are going in color order, so we're going to do all the same colored cards all together. We're starting with the Azorius cards, so the white and blue cards. And our first one up is Titus Blitzball Star. He is a 1 white blue for a 2/1 legendary creature human warrior at uncommon. He says, whenever an artifact you control enters, put a +1/+1 counter on Titus, and whenever Titus attacks, tap target creature and opponent controls. So, as we can see, the Azorius colors really care about artifacts in this set. Artifacts and artificers, kind of. We'll see a little bit more of that as we go through some of these cards. And yeah, the ability of it gets bigger and grows as you play more cards seems extremely strong, and it can be, but it kind of depends. And in limited at 3 mana for a 2/1, so it's kind of a weak body. You really need to have artifacts in your deck for this to do anything. You would like this to be quite a bit bigger. Like after the first 2 artifacts come down, we were probably happy, but because it's 3 mana, a lot of cards that have this type of ability cost 2, and we're still not super excited about playing them. So that first ability seems really exciting, but it'll be helpful in certain decks. And this format looks like it could go a little long, so maybe Titus will actually end up being a little bit stronger than that. The actual triggered ability when you attack and you get to tap a creature, that can be quite strong as well. But it also means that Titus has to be big enough that, it can't just trade with a 1/1. So you need artifacts for this card to be good. I think this is like a C+. I don't think you're unhappy to have this in your deck. Your artifact deck, you're pretty happy with it, but it doesn't do everything by itself. And 1 copy of this card will be great. Once you start to get to too many multiples, it's going to go down, especially because it's legendary. Though there are legendary themes in this set. So C+ for the Titus Blitzball Star. Next up we have Sid Timeless Artificer, which is 2 white blue for a 4/4 legendary creature human artificer at uncommon. It says artifact creatures and heroes you control get +1/+1 for each artificer you control and each artificer card in your graveyard. Sid, of course, is an artificer, so it gives all artifact creatures and heroes +1/+1 for just being on the battlefield. So that's pretty nice. It has a useless line of text for limited, which says a deck can have any number of cards named Sid Timeless Artificer. In limited, any deck can have any number of cards that you draft. So, if you get 5 of any card, you can put it in your deck. It doesn't matter. And then it also has cycling for white-blue. This is pretty interesting. This card also has 16 different arts for it, so keep that in mind when you're looking at this card in the set, because there's one for each different Final Fantasy game. The one that we're looking at here is Final Fantasy XIV. So a 4-mana 4/4 that pumps up all your artifact creatures and heroes, that could be good. There is an ability called Job Select in the set that does make heroes tokens. So hero tokens being around is real, and those are also Probably going to be, you're going to have a lot of heroes in this deck just because all the job slot cards are artifacts, so we kind of care about those. They're not artifact creatures though, so I don't know how many of those we're going to have necessarily, but a Lord that pumps up some stuff can be good. And if you have multiple copies of the card, you can just cycle it and then just have one on the battlefield. So it saves you from that, oh, I have two of the same legendary card in my hand. Well, this one's like you can play one, you can cycle the other, and the one in the graveyard actually helps boost all your other creatures. So that's pretty nice. But overall, it is a 4-mana Lord, which is kind of expensive. And but the body's nice. I'm gonna give this like a C+ as well. I don't think it's huge, and you can't really afford to have a crazy number of this card, but the cycling helps. The fact that the cycling costs blue, like white blue, like the colored mana in the cycling really hurts this card. If the cycling was just 2 of any color, I'd be much happier. But the fact that it's like that, you know, the white blue really hurts it. On the other side though, you wouldn't want any deck to just take one of these Sids because they can cycle it for free. So that's probably why they tied the colors to it. But in the end, it's like a C+. Cool, but I'm not jumping out of my seat or anything. Next up, we have Hope Etheum, which is a white and a blue for a 2/2 legendary creature, human wizard at rare, and it has a lifelink. Well, 2/2 lifelink, I like that just right off the bat. Hard to cast, but you know, I like 2/2s that have lifelink. It says at the beginning of your end step, each opponent mills X cards, where X is the amount of life you gained this turn. Okay, so if Sid attacks, or not Sid, if Hope attacks and survives to the end step, you get to mill your opponent for 2. There is like a life gain type of strategy in this format. It does kind of seem to be like a Celestnia thing. This is very interesting. I think I'm also just going to give this card a C+. It has a weird build around potential, so maybe it could be a little bit higher. I don't know if we're going to be milling our opponents out really, but just having something sit here and then other cards letting you gain life and then you just mill your opponent from that could be all right. But once again, the applications seem kind of sketchy. But I like the body. Like a 2-mana 2/2 lifelink is probably like a C+ already. So this just has some extra gravy on it, though it is hard to cast. So there is that. Next up, we have Absolute Virtue, which is 6 white-blue for an 8/8 legendary creature, Avatar Warrior at Mythic. It says this spell can't be countered. It has flying. And the most important part of the text is, it says you have protection from each of your opponents, which, if you're not familiar with that, what that means, because we don't often get protection from opponents, it says you can't be dealt damage, enchanted, or targeted by anything controlled by your opponents. This is a crazy card. It does cost 8 mana, but it is an 8/8 that can't be countered. It reminds me a lot of those cards. It's like a Platinum Angel where it's like you can't win the game. Sorry, you can't. Your opponents can't. You can't lose the game, and your opponents can't win the game. That's what it says. This kind of feels like that because once you play this card, you don't really want to block with it, or you don't necessarily love it getting into combat with stuff. Because remember, this card doesn't have protection from anything, but you personally have protection. Right? So you don't have to block anymore because any damage that's dealt to you, nothing deals damage to you. You can't be enchanted and you can't be targeted by spells that deal damage to your face or anything like that. But all your stuff can, right? So it has that weird thing where your opponents just can't attack anymore. It does bring a stalemate, but then once this card dies, then you might just lose the game. Though you don't lose the game immediately because it does prevent the damage. So I think that's a big change. We had an Angel in Foundations that was similar to this card that looked really cool and was really exciting, but if you ever got below 0 life and then they top deck like a removal spell and kill the Angel, you just lose on the spot. This card has the similar effect where they can attack you and nothing happens. Except for the fact that they know that if they attack you, nothing happens, so they probably just don't attack you, and then you just have this giant 8/8. But it does have flying, and it's really hard to deal with 8/8s with flying. I think this card's just an A. Like, in this set, you'll see that a lot of huge cards have like a giant impact, and I'm expecting that we're going to get to the point of the game where you can cast cards like Absolute Virtue. You're going to have to build your deck towards it, that's for sure. 8 mana is a lot, but I think that this format you will be able to do that, and I have a feeling that this format's going to go a little bit longer than some of the other ones we've seen in the past. So an 8 mana 8/8 that gives you protection from everything, basically. I love it. That sounds great. Moving right along, we have our Dimir cards, so our blue-black cards. And if I didn't mention this earlier, I'm pretty sure everything is legendary when we're talking about gold cards, because there's a lot of legendary creatures in Final Fantasy, and we got to talk about all of them. So this is Lock Cole, which is 1 blue-black for a 2/3 legendary creature, human rogue at uncommon. It has Death Touch and Lifelink. Death Touch, Lifelink for 3 mana. Awesome. This is like a Vampire Nighthawk-ish type of thing. It doesn't have flying, but Death Touch, Lifelink, love that combination. And it also says whenever Lock Cole deals combat damage to a player, draw a card, then discard a card. Okay, so this card, because it has Death Touch, is going to eat something. It's going to eat a card no matter what, right? So your opponent's going to have to either use a removal spell on it, or if they block, they'll have to trade no matter how big their creature is. If they don't want to block because their creatures are too good, you just get to loot every time. Like, this card is awesome. This is like a B level card. I love things like this. I will often see cards, like, I think I'm going to want to pick this card every time I see it in the draft. If I'm even touching blue or black, I'll be like, ooh, but a Lock Cole. Yeah. So I think this is pretty solid. This is like a B level card. Really happy with this right here. Next Dimir card is Ultimia Sorceress, which is 3 blue-black for a 4/5 legendary creature, human warlock at uncommon. It says whenever Ultimia enters or attacks, you get to surveil 2. So you look at the top 2 cards of your library, then put any number of them into your graveyard and the rest on the top of your library in any order. Surveilling is a really strong ability. Being able to do it when it enters and attacks, that's pretty nice. It's still a 5 mana 4/5, but there's some more text on this card. It says at the beginning of your end step, you may pay 4 blue, black. So that's 8 mana total. And it says exile 8 cards from your graveyard. If you do, transform Ultimia into Ultimia Omnipotent, which is a 7/7 legendary creature, Nightmare Warlock with Menace, and it has an ability Time Compression. It says when this creature transforms into Ultimia Omnipotent, take an extra turn after this one. I don't know if we've ever had an uncommon extra turn spell before. This is really bizarre to me that they would be able to give you this ability. Like, so we have a 5 mana 4/5. It enters, you get to dump 2 cards into your graveyard if you want. Because if you're trying to fuel your graveyard so you can flip this over, that's, I think, what you're kind of looking for. This is a huge late game thing. 4/5 body is actually really great for 5 mana. You want to make sure that you can like survive to get 8 mana and then flip this thing. Because if you do get to flip it, you just get the 7/7 menace and you take another turn, so you get a hit in for sure if your opponent can't kill it on the turn it flips, basically. So yeah, I don't know. This seems really cool. There is the awkward thing of like, you do have to wait until your end step to pay the triggered thing, so your opponent could kill it as if you, like, before the trigger goes on the stack. I think because it's triggered and you get to pay all the stuff, your opponent can't kill it with the trigger on the stack when it's transforming. But also I actually think I'm wrong. I think there's a lot of transform cards in this set, and I think your opponent can just wait for you to do all the stuff and then they kill it. I don't think we're going to be flipping this card very often. I don't know if we're super stoked with the 5 mana 4/5. It seems extremely powerful, but you don't want more than one. Also, just because it's legendary. I don't know. This feels like it looks so exciting, but I'm much more interested in the card that we had before this. So I'm going to give Ultimia like a... I think it's going to end up playing closer to like a C. I don't know if it feels like it has so much going for it, but I don't know. I want a lot of my stuff right now. And, 5 mana, 4/5 Surveil 2. It's nice. I don't know why I'm not super excited by this, but I'm probably wrong, but it feels like it's just not going to be that good. I think that this card looks like it's going to be amazing, but it's going to be it's going to go pretty late. That's what I think. So it feels kind of like a C for me. Sorry, Ultimisia. Jeez. Sorry, folks. Next up, we have Golbez Crystal Collector, which is blue-black for a 1/4 legendary creature, human wizard at rare. It says, whenever an artifact you control enters, surveil one. And at the beginning of your end step, if you control 4 or more artifacts, return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. Then if you control 8 or more artifacts, each opponent loses life equal to that card's power. All right, so the one thing about this is that it does nothing when it enters. It doesn't do anything when it enters, and it doesn't do anything after that. You just need artifacts. It's just like a 2 mana 1/4 that you have to have other stuff going on for it. But the things that you get to do feel quite strong. Like if you're in an artifact deck, we're pretty happy with when your artifact enters surveilling. Like getting all lands into the graveyard sounds great. And the ability of, if you have 4 more artifacts, returning creature cards from your graveyard to your hand. And then if you have 8, you get to dome your opponent for a bunch. That seems really strong. It also seems pretty strong with any sort of summon, because those are going to die often, and then you play artifacts, you get it back, you dome your opponent, you play the summon, you get to do the whole thing. Obviously, that's Magical Christmas Land. But I think I'm going to give this a C+. I'm happy with this card. Obviously, you need more stuff going around for it to work, but it's cheap enough that I'll be pretty happy to have it in my deck. And the ability is strong. 4 is a lot. 4 is a lot of artifacts. So I think I originally had this at a B-, and I'm kind of nerfing it just a little bit because if you're not in artifacts, it does literally nothing. So, but if you're in artifacts, if you have 10 artifacts in your deck, this is probably much closer to a B or B+. So I don't know, but I'm going to give it a C+ for now. Sometimes I'm a little intense on these grades, but you have to tell me in the comments below. All right, next up we have Emmet Selch Unsundered, which is 1 blue-black for a 2/4 legendary creature, Elder Wizard at Mythic. It has Vigilance. It says that whenever Emmet enters or attacks, draw a card, then discard a card. Yeah, 3 mana Looter, 2/4 Vigilance, already stoked. It has the Titan ability where it enters, it does it attacks, it does it. And drawing cards is much bigger than just surveilling. And it's cheap, it's only 3 mana. This is all very exciting. It also has, at the beginning of your upkeep, if there are 14 or more cards in your graveyard, you may transform Emmet into Hades, Sorcerer of Eld, which is a 6/6 legendary creature avatar with Vigilance. It has Echo of the Lost, which is an ability that says during your turn, you may play cards from your graveyard, and if a card or token will be put into your graveyard from anywhere, exile it instead. Obviously, that last clause is so that you don't just loop through your graveyard consistently. But being able to recast all your spells is very strong. Very, very strong. Recasting all your removal spells, any of your creatures, just anything that's been happening in the game so far. And obviously, Emmet, you have 14 choices. The biggest thing, it does say you can play cards from your graveyard, so that includes lands. If it said cast, you wouldn't be able to do that. So you get to play lands from your graveyard. You have this giant 6/6 with Vigilance, and you get to just basically draw 14 cards. This card is fantastic. On its own, I feel like just being able to play a 3 mana 2/4 that's looting is strong enough. And then if it comes down late, hopefully it can survive until your next upkeep to do all the stuff. There's a lot of graveyard synergies in this format, and 14 cards is a lot, but if you're going through your deck and churning by milling or surveilling or you're discarding all that stuff, I think you can flip this card. This does want to be in a specific kind of deck, but it's for sure an A. This is a great card. I'm really excited to play this. Super strong. Emmet, A. Love it. Absolutely love it. Next up, we have our Rakdos cards. So these are our black and red cards. And first up, we have Garland, Knight of Cornelia, which is black-red for a 3/2 legendary creature, human knight at uncommon. It says whenever you cast a non-creature spell, surveil one. And then you can pay 3 black-black, red-red to return this card from your graveyard to the battlefield transformed. Activate only as a sorcery. And it turns into Chaos the Endless, which is a 5/5 legendary creature demon. It has flying, and it says when Chaos dies, put it on the bottom of its owner's library. Okay, so wait, is that a dragon coming out of its stomach? What is going on with this demon? Okay, it's got faces on its kneecaps too. All right. Anyway, besides the point. But this is a 2-mana 3/2 that works with the spells deck because it cares about you casting non-creature spells. Get to put a bunch of cards into your graveyard or just look for the cards that you want that will help you continue your engine. Already that seems kind of nice. Surveilling every time you get to do something is like a big game. Like cast a spell, you're not exactly drawing a card, but it feels close to the like every time you cast a spell you get to loot kind of thing. Obviously, you don't. That's not as powerful because it's not in your hand. But the fact that you get to sift through what you kind of want to have, you can also like cast a draw spell and you get to surveil first to kind of pick which cards you'd like, which is pretty cool. And then you're kind of fine trading this off with something because later on it just turns into a 5/5 with flying. And then if that dies, you might be able to draw it again later in the game. But bottom of the library, not nearly as exciting as like, anywhere else, because are you really going to be able to replay this? Maybe it'll keep you from decking at some point. That'll be a funny situation. But like a 2-drop that eventually, like for 7 mana, it turns into a 5/5 with flying. I don't know. I kind of like that. This card seems pretty sweet. I'm going to give this like a B. I think I like having something early. I really like cards that are cheap. And you're going to want a lot of cards that are cheap, and especially this one that cares about trading off because it does have some utility later in the game. Multiples of this card feel significantly like better having in your deck because you're going to be kind of aggressive. You want to be able to find the best cards. And hey, if you have multiple copies, you could surveil one of the copies into your graveyard and then bring it back out. That's kind of nice. So, yeah, I'm going to give this a B. I like Garland a lot. I think the Rakdos deck is going to be pretty interesting, this set. Pretty interesting. Next up, we have Black Waltz number 3, which is 2 black-red for a 2/2 legendary creature wizard at uncommon. It has flying and death touch. And it says, whenever you cast a non-creature spell, Black Waltz number 3 deals 2 damage to each opponent. Okay. So, cards like this are hard to grade sometimes because if this deck is really, really strong, I think this could be one of the pieces, but 4 mana for a 2/2 is really expensive. 4 mana for a 2/2 that wants you to play more cards after it, also expensive. It has flying and death touch, which does help, so at least you're trading off with something, but this looks like a lightning rod for removal. If it goes unchecked, it can be really strong. There is this weird balance between like 4 mana non-creature spells and like cheap spells. There's these 2 different decks that are kind of going on in the spells territory. And this one obviously wants to play a bunch of cheap ones because the more non-creature spells you cast, the more damage you can deal to your opponents. But I think that this is probably going to fall up short because you will hopefully in that deck have a lot of cards that make the 0/1 like wizards that the black wizards that deal damage, like 1 damage every time you do this ability. But those are all non-creature spells. So you don't have, you want a big number of those cards because you just keep casting more and more and pick up wizards as you go. And this only pays you off for playing non-creature spells, and it already costs 4 mana. I wish this was cheaper. I think that's the biggest thing. I wish this was cheaper. So with that, I think I'm just going to give it a C. I don't know if it's going to fit in the deck necessarily, and it really doesn't want to be in any other deck. Nobody's interested in like a 4 mana 2/2 death touch. Like that stat line is just, it's too small for what you're paying for. So I don't know. C. Ooh, sorry. Next up, we have Kua Genome Sorcerer, which is 2 black-red for a 3/4 legendary creature human mutant wizard at rare. It says, at the beginning of your end step, create a tapped 0/1 black wizard creature token with, whenever you cast a non-creature spell, this token deals 1 damage to each opponent. Then if you control 4 or more wizards, you transform Kua into Trance Kua, Fate Defied, which is a 4/6 legendary creature avatar wizard. It has an ability called Flame Star. If a wizard you control would deal damage to a permanent or player, it deals double that damage instead. All right, this is the 4-drop creature that we're looking for this wizard deck, right? This comes in, every end step we get to make another wizard. And then whenever we have 4 or more wizards, we just got to turn it into this thing that just blows up all your stuff. That turns all your little 0/1s into creatures that deal 2 damage, just like the other stupid 4-drop that we had earlier. And when this is actually attacking, it deals 8 damage because you're dealing double damage. This is very exciting. I like this card a lot. Obviously, you need to be in the Wizards deck. I don't think that's going to be that hard. And the fact that it's giving you tokens every turn, no matter what. If this goes unchecked, like, it can possibly flip on the first turn that you play it, because it's going to make 2 wizards just by playing the card. So if you have 2 other ones when you play this, that's not too terrible to do. Like turn 2, turn 3, we get wizards. Turn 4, this, flip it, everything's doubled. Pretty exciting, though. Would be kind of nice to have this sit around and make a bunch of wizards for a little bit. But I'm going to give this an A-. I like this card a lot. I think this is strong. Any card that gives you lots of cardboard, and this one kind of does just forever, until you flip it and then just start killing your opponent. It seems really strong. This Wizards deck looks pretty cool, except for that other 4-drop. But what are you going to do? Anyway, next up we have Grul, which is the red and green cards. So this is Rydia, Summoner of Mist. It's red-green for a 1/2 legendary creature, human shaman, uncommon. It has landfall. Whenever a land you control enters, you may discard a card. If you do, draw a card. Every time you play a land, you get to rummage. That is very strong. Every deck plays lands. So that's just... And it's a May ability. That's very strong. Do not underestimate that first ability. Holy crap. And then it has another ability on top of that. It says summon. You can pay X and tap it. Return target saga card with mana value X from your graveyard to the battlefield with a finality counter on it. It gains haste until end of turn. Activate it only as a sorcery. So this basically says you get to play a land for your turn. So turn 3, play a land, discard a summon, pay 3 mana, tap this, bring that saga back if it's 3 or less. I don't know. That seems really good. I like this card a lot. And I like the thing that they're doing with Grul in this set is really interesting. It's so different than a lot of other stuff we've seen, in my opinion. Like all this kind of returning your sagas back and getting all this kind of enchantment-y type of stuff. Really, really cool. I like this card. I'm going to give this like a B+. Like this card seems strong. I think just the first ability of like rummaging when you get to play lands just is going to be extremely helpful in any deck. So you're happy to play this. Yeah, B+. Jeez. Strong. Next up, we have Gladiolus. Emisitia. I never want to have to say that card name ever again. We're going to call him Glatty. So Glatty is 4 red-green for a 6/6 legendary creature, human warrior at uncommon. It says when he enters, search your library for a land card, put it onto the battlefield tapped. And then you also have another landfall ability. Whenever a land you control enters, another target creature you control gets +2/+2 and gains trample until end of turn. Sweet. So 6 mana, 6/6, it enters, you go get a land, immediately give another creature +2/+2 and trample. And then anytime you play a land, you continue get to being able to do that. Giving the trample is really big and probably the most important part of this card. It is 6 mana though, and I think there's a lot of things we're going to want to do in this set with our mana. There's a lot of big spells. And I don't know if this is the spell that we want to be casting necessarily. If this was just a little bit cheaper, 6 just feels like so much. But At the same time, on turn 7 when you're attacking with this, or, if you can ramp it out or whatever. But when Glatty does get to attack, it's an 8/8 trample, most likely. Because you're probably going to want to play a couple extra lands in this deck just to make sure that you're always hitting your land drops. Pretty cool. Probably like a C+, though. I don't know if I'm going to say that this is in the B range, just because it's expensive. But a C. C+. It's cool. It kills. It's cool. That's what I'll say. Next up, we have Balthier and Fran, which is 1 red-green for a 4/3 legendary creature, human rabbit. Is she a rabbit? I guess so. At rare. They have reach, and it says vehicles you control get +1/+1 and have vigilance and reach. And whenever a vehicle crewed by them this turn attacks, if it's the first combat phase of the turn, you may pay 1 red-green. If you do, after this phase, there is an additional combat phase. Which, of course, your vehicles get to attack again because they have vigilance. This, remember, does not untap your creatures. It only gives your vehicles vigilance, which helps them attack again, but it doesn't help the rest of your creatures that don't have vigilance attack. Just remember that. But a vehicle lord that gives them vigilance and reach and +1/+1, that's a lot of stuff. And a 4-mana 4/3 reach, or 3-mana 4/3 reach, is already pretty exciting. If you play this card with no vehicles in your deck, it's probably like a C. If you have 3 vehicles, I think you're pretty happy, but having vehicles in your deck is kind of hard, but the extra combat thing is good. There's a bit of murkiness here. It's hard to tell as far as like how great is it going to be with vehicles, or how excited are we to play vehicles in this set, and how many are abundant in these colors that we really want to play. I think the upside is there. I'm probably just going to give this a B, though. I think it's a B. I don't think we're in A range. Might have some stuff to do in Standard or maybe other formats where you actually get to pick which vehicles you're playing. But if you're kind of just using the ones that we have lying around, I'm not obsessed, especially because a lot of the artifact stuff is in white-blue anyway. So I still think it's good. The body is great. And if you have 2 or 3 vehicles, there's something there. I feel like I might be overestimating how good this card is, actually. Ugh. Officially, we're giving it a B, but I think it's actually probably lower than that. Yeah, probably. All right. Next up, we have Terra, Magical Adept. Magical Adept. Yes, that's what it is. 1 red-green for a 4/2 legendary creature, human wizard warrior at Mythic. It says when Terra enters, mill 5 cards. Put up to 1 enchantment card milled this way into your hand. And it also has an ability called Trance, which is 4 red-green. You can tap it, exile Terra, then transform it, return it to the battlefield transformed. Only do it as a sorcery. And the transformed part is a summon creature. So this is Esperterra, which is a 6/6 flying legendary enchantment creature, Saga Wizard. It has 4 chapters, but the first 3 are all the same. It says, create a token that's a copy of target non-legendary enchantment you control. It gains haste. If it's a saga, put up to 3 lore counters on it. Sacrifice it at the beginning of your next end step. And then for 4 mana, the 4th one, you get to add Progenitus mana, which is white, white, blue, blue, black, black, red, red, green, green. You get to exile Esperterra and then return it to the battlefield looking like this, where you get to mill cards and then return an enchantment from your graveyard to your hand. So this is some of the enchantment-y stuff we were kind of talking about earlier. This is a really interesting card. The create a token part of your sagas, and then you get to choose how many counters you want to put on it, is pretty interesting. The one question I really have with this is whether you get to trigger all of the saga abilities if you put 3 counters on it or not, or does it just count how many counters you have on it when you do it? I think it's the second one. So if you have a card that comes in and you want like the second ability, you put 2 counters on it, and then you get that second ability. I'm pretty positive that's how that works, because I don't think you get one for each specific counter that went on it, because they just come on all at once. It's not like 1 and then 2 and then 3, which would then trigger it all the different steps or chapters, let's say. So you do get to choose whichever one you want, and you can pop a lot of them if you want to do that. But having just a free enchantment creature that you get to attack with is cool. The front side of Terra does get you the enchantment card, most likely, that you're looking for. And so being able to play that on turn 5 and then trance on turn 6, make another copy of it, do all the abilities, attack with it right away. You're going to lose it anyway, and you just keep doing that. And then when you flip this back over, you got a bunch of mana. You return it to the battlefield, you go mill a bunch of cards, get an enchantment card, and then you have Progenitus mana, so you can for sure play whatever you just got, and kind of keep looping through, and hopefully you just don't mill yourself to death. This card seems very strong. This is the kind of thing that I'm talking about that we can do with tons of mana. Obviously, this is a mythic compared to like an uncommon, but this does so much stuff. You get to play it early. You get a big game blow-up card kind of later. It's a 6/6 with flying already. Obviously you can't make a copy of itself, but there's so much stuff going on here. I'm just going to give this a flat, this is an A. I don't think it's going to be hard to find enchantments for this deck. I think they're all over the place, and I think they're going to be strong, and I think this card's strong, and I would be very happy putting this card in my deck and trying to do this whole enchantment melee thing. It feels kind of funky, but no, I like it a lot. Also a 4/2, I don't know, it trades really well if you have to trade off early. I don't know, I like it. This Grul stuff looks pretty exciting to me. Really looking forward to that. All right, next up we have Celestnia, which is green and white, and our first card is Garnet, Princess of Alexandria, which is green-white for a 2/2 legendary creature, human noble cleric at uncommon. It has lifelink. So we have another hard to cast 2-mana 2/2 lifelink. It says whenever Garnet attacks, you may remove a lore counter from each of any number of sagas you control. Put a +1/+1 counter on Garnet for each lore counter removed this way. Oh my god. This card's really cool. What a cool card. So, like we said before, it's hard to cast 2-mana 2/2 lifelink, but we like that stat line just in general. And this one grows very well. This already has it on it. You can have it sit back for a little bit and you get some sagas out. And this just lets you keep your saga creatures around. All your summons, Garnet is just yep, we want to make sure that they stick around. So we will let that happen. And you just get to pull off those counters. You get to put all those counters onto Garna. And then I'm pretty sure it's pronounced Garna. You put them on Garna, and now you have, if you take one, it's 3/3, 4/4, 5/5 lifelink. There's the possibility of doing a bunch all at the same time and having huge attacks. You can attack with a bunch of your sagas and pull counters off of them, so you get to attack a following turn. Because the thing with the summon saga creature things, most of the time you only get to attack with them once, because you just don't, they die after the third chapter. So the first chapter they come down, they can't attack. Second one they get to attack. Third one, you put the third counter on it and it dies. This is a way to keep them around and re-trigger the first or second chapter over and over again. Really cool, super build around. But I think I'm gonna give Garna a B. This is something I'm excited to build around, and I like the potential. This is cool, and Garna is awesome. Man, there's some of these sweet cards here. Next up, we have Riona Heartily. Heartily? Sure. This is 3 green white for a 4/4 legendary creature, human rebel warlock at uncommon. It says when Riona enters, create Angelo, a legendary 1/1 green and white dog creature token. So 5 mana for 5 power and toughness worth of stats across 2 creatures. Always good. Making cardboard, always good. And then there's another ability called Angelo Cannon. Whenever Riona attacks, another creature you control gets +1/+1 until end of turn for each creature you control. It could be the dog that Riona brought. So immediately when you're attacking, it's a 4/4 and a 3/3. That's pretty good. If you have more creatures, obviously it compounds on itself and gets better and better. This is 5 mana, though, and you really want to be attacking. The fact that it's 5 mana makes it a little bit harder. And the token's the small thing, so you don't really get to flicker this and do some shenanigans. Obviously, it's also legendary, but I think this can do some work, but it's probably closer to like a C+. I don't know if I see this, I'll be like, okay, green-white's open, I gotta go for it. So, you know, generically, I think it's pretty good, but not phenomenal in any sense. But it does sound pretty annoying. Getting the cardboard's nice, but that's why it's like a C+. But it's a 5 mana card. I don't know, 5 mana is a lot. Yeah. Next up, we have Sarapharen, which is 1 green-white for a 2/2 legendary creature, human citizen at rare. It says, the first legendary creature spell you cast each turn costs 2 less to cast. And at the beginning of combat on your turn, if you control 2 or more other legendary creatures, you may transform Sarapharen into Crystallized Seraph. Yeah, Sarah. I thought I said Seraph for a second. It's a legendary artifact, and it says the first legendary creature spell you cast each turn costs 2 less to cast, the same thing as before. But it says legendary creatures you control get +2/+2. So this is a really big artifact. Like, if you're playing the Legendary Matters deck, which this deck does care about, it also cares about lifelink and like gaining life and stuff. But being able to have, like, every single card we've talked about is legendary. So legendary creatures are everywhere in this set. Even like we were talking about Angelo. I guess imagine this with Angelo. Actually, that is pretty cool. Riona gives you the other legendary creatures to flip this card, and then those get really big. Oh, I do actually kind of like that. Maybe that makes Riona a little bit better. If you have both these together, obviously this is a rare, so it's hopefully going to make a lot of your cards better. But the fact that the first one you cast every turn costs 2 less to cast. Yeah, the turns where you play like turn 3, this 3 mana 2/2, and then next turn you play Riona because you costs 2 less, so it doesn't cost 5 anymore, it costs 3. You get both of your extra legendary creatures, you flip this, and then they're huge. That does seem kind of exciting. But the games, so, you know, maybe that other card is a little bit better than I thought. But Sarah in general, if you can get these legendary creatures, which I don't think is going to be very hard, having a card that just like turns into a buff that's like kind of hard to deal with, and also makes your creatures cheaper to cast, I don't know, it seems pretty strong. This is like a B+ probably in that deck. Besides that, like it doesn't do anything if you don't have legendary creatures, but I think every single deck's going to have a ton of legendary creatures. So I don't think this is going to be a problem, and this is going to pump up a bunch of creatures on your team. Yeah, B+. Sarah, awesome. I love Lords. I love when all my creatures are huge. All right, next up, this is our last Celestnia card. It is Yuna, Hope of Spiria, which is 3 green-white for a 3/5 legendary creature, human cleric at Mythic. It says, during your turn, Yuna and enchantment creatures you control have Trample, Lifelink, and Ward 2. At the beginning of your end step, return up to 1 target enchantment card from your graveyard to the battlefield with a finality counter on it. So, of course, that means if it would die, it goes to exile instead of your graveyard. All right, so Yuna is a summoner, and in the story really cares about saga creatures, and literally the summon that she's holding on to right now. And yeah, this card obviously says that. Yuna gets Trample, Lifelink, and Ward 2, and all of your Saga creatures do. The Saga creatures getting Trample and Lifelink, that's nice, because you want to get in with them. And when they die, you just bring them back for free. This card's awesome. This card's very strong. This is the 5 mana card that we're talking about, where we get to like play this, attack with our Saga. Either they don't really want to block anymore. And then next turn it pops, it comes back because Yuna will bring it back. It has Ward 2 during your turn. I don't know. All strong things. This looks like an A-. Like, you do need to have enchantment creatures. Otherwise, this card does not do anything. But I don't think that's going to be hard to get to. Yeah. Yuna seems like unchecked, very strong, and really annoying. So yeah, A- for Yuna. Love you, Yuna. You the best. You the best. All right, next up, we have Orzov cards, which are white and black. This is Judge Magister Gabranth. He's white and black for a 2/2 legendary creature, human advisor knight at uncommon. He has menace, and he says whenever another creature or artifact you control dies, put a +1/+1 counter on Judge Magister Gabranth. All right, these types of cards that are like the cheaper card that gets bigger when your stuff goes away. We've seen versions of this card before. This one has menace, so that's nice, but it is harder to cast. It procs off of creatures and artifacts, which all the other cards do as well. The artifact thing is really huge, but sometimes this just isn't exactly what you want to do, because you can sacrifice a bunch of your board to make this huge, and then your opponent just kills it, and then you're just like, you're just toast. But that's what your deck was built to do. So I think this card's a little bit of a trap. This is basically like a C. Don't build your whole game plan around just this guy. It's just too many eggs in that one basket, and I just don't think he can handle it. Still a nice card to have in the deck, though, like getting a couple creature or a couple counters here and there, but don't go like full Voltron with this dude. You're gonna have a really bad day. So just a C for this guy. These cards have not looked very strong in the past to me. Next up, we have Rufus Shinra. You piece of crap, you garbage guy, and your stupid dog. I don't like him. Anyway, Rufus Shinra is 1 white-black for a 2/4 legendary creature, human noble at uncommon. It says whenever Rufus attacks, if you don't control a creature named Darkstar, create Darkstar, a legendary 2/2 white and black dog creature token. Again, tons of legendary creatures, tokens that are legendary. This is pretty cool. I like that it's a 2/4 because you want to be attacking multiple times. And of course, Darkstar, you want to be sacrificing. That's the kind of joke here, is that you attack with Rufus, your opponent doesn't really want to block, or they have to double block, and you get to at least kill something. But for the most part, you're hoping to be able to attack and they just don't block. And then you just keep making 2/2s, and then you use the 2/2s as fodder to sacrifice to other things, because white-black likes sacrificing stuff, and this set is no different than that. So, yeah. The fact you have to attack is kind of hard, and you can't make multiple Dark Stars, so it is a little funky. So with that, like, it makes a piece of cardboard. So I think I'm going to give it like a C+, but I don't think any of these are in the B range. Like, some of these white-black cards are... There's definitely better cards for this deck. So I don't know if you see this card, it's going to be like, oh, white-black is open. I think it might be a trap and be like, oh, white-black's not open, but this card is just not that fantastic. So the fact it gives you some cardboard bumps it up a little bit. So a C+ because of that. But otherwise, kind of happy. Rufus sucks. Don't like him. Stupid corporate guy, whatever. Anyway, next up we have Squall, which is Seed Mercenary. He is 2 white-black for a 3/4 legendary creature, human knight mercenary at rare. He has an ability called Rough Divide. Whenever a creature you control attacks alone, it gains double strike until end of turn. Like that. Love double strike on creatures. And it says whenever Squall deals combat damage to a player, return target permanent card with mana value 2 or 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. All right, Squall attacks, deals damage. You return any permanent with 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. If Squall attacks by himself, obviously he gets double strike from his own ability. You get to hit your opponent 2 times. You get 2 things back from your graveyard. This card rocks. I love cards like this. This is really exciting. Hopefully you're going to be playing a game where you get to like have a bunch of creatures early, trade off a bunch of stuff. Then you slam this. Your opponent's like, dear Lord, what are they going to do? And then they might have like 2 blockers. You kill one of them. You get to attack against double strike. They have to choose between just losing their creature and getting eaten, or you getting 2 cards back from your graveyard and drawing 2 cards from your graveyard to the battlefield. No finality counters, nothing. This card just does it. I don't know. This is an A-level card. Probably going to give it like an A- because you do need to make sure that you're playing a low-to-the-ground white-black deck, but I think that's what you want to do anyway. This is pushing you into that category. I really like this. Bringing things back from the graveyard. Really strong. Awesome. Great job, Squall. Squall, you're awesome. What a sick card. Ugh. I just, it feels so nice when those sweet cards. Also, this guy has like a gunblade or something. Hell yeah, that's awesome. All right, next up is our Is It cards, which are blue and red. So this is Emperor of Palamisia. Sure, we'll go with that. It's blue-red for a 2/2 legendary creature, human noble wizard at uncommon. It's a mana dork, so it taps for either blue or red, and you can spend this mana only to cast non-creature spells. It says whenever you cast a non-creature spell, if at least 4 mana was spent to cast it, put a +1/+1 counter on the Emperor. Then if it has 3 or more +1/+1 counters on it, you transform it into the Lord Master of Hell, which is a 3/3 legendary creature, demon noble wizard. It has ability called Starfall. It says whenever the Lord Master of Hell attacks, it deals X damage to each opponent, where X is the number of non-creature, non-land cards in your graveyard. Whew, that could be a lot of damage. This is the type of deck that obviously wants to play a bunch of little spells, because then you get to flip your card very quickly. Actually, no, this cares about the 4 mana or more stuff. Right. This card's really interesting because it blends the world of, like, you get to put counters on this card if you play expensive spells, and the card helps you play expensive spells. But the other half of the card wants you to have played a lot of little spells to deal lots of damage to your opponent. So it's kind of the split thing, where it wants to be like, it's the Is It card, but the Rakdos cards are the ones that want to play lots of spells, and the Is It ones kind of want to play the bigger spells. So it's kind of in a weird space. Because it cares the most about doing that, if you could put counters on this other ways, that's kind of interesting. If you get to cheat it in a way, because it will proc on the first, like, 4 mana spent on a non-creature spell. It put the counter on it, and then it'll look to see if there are 3 more counters. So if you have cards in your deck that let you put counters on it in other ways, they're hopefully like non-creature spells, they go into your graveyard, and then you get to attack with the Lord of the Hell guy, Lord Master of Hell. Then you get to deal damage, and you only had to have 1 4 mana spell to flip it and then attack. That sounds way better. I think there are quite a few different blue cards that put counters on stuff in kind of the normal ways that blue does. There's a divination variant that you draw cards and you put counters on something. So I think this card kind of wants to fit with that. The balance of not only playing a certain amount of creatures to spell ratio, but also adding the new thing of, but I need to make sure that some of my spells are cheap, but some of them are expensive, and playing them in the right order so I can do everything will work out. That's very complicated. I don't know if this is going to be a very good strategy. That's really hard. Man, I went through like a whole whirlwind of... I had this originally as like a B, but I think because of all that stuff, I'm going to bring it down a little bit. Being able to cast your more expensive spells with this is super helpful, though. It's probably just like a B-. I don't think I'm going to take it all the way down to a C. But yeah, I think that's going to be a really tricky deck to play. And, you know, spells decks in general and Is It tend to be kind of bad. So we hope it does better. But this does have a lot going for it. But also there's kind of a lot against it. All right. Next up, we are looking at Shanto, Tactician Magician, which is 1 blue-red for a 0/4 legendary creature, dwarf wizard at uncommon. It says whenever you cast a non-creature spell, Shanto gets +X/+0 until end of turn, where X is the amount of mana spent to cast that spell. If X is 4 or more, draw a card. So one thing to note is that this does not just trigger once a turn. So the kind of joke is that you do play this on 3. On 4, you play a 4 mana spell. It's a 4/4 that draws you a card, and you get to attack. That's nice. You also get to live in a world where you get to play multiple spells, and it gets bigger and bigger each time you do that, because it does just give +X/+0. So I do like that as well. It does say the word draw a card on it, and I think this is the type of deck where you need to draw lots of cards, and you really need this card on the battlefield to be able to do stuff in that deck. If you're just casting 4 mana spells, You need something else. You need to be playing lots of lands. You need lots of cards. And this is a big enough butt to like block when you need it to, and also maybe surprise trade with your opponent's stuff. So I think your opponent has a hard time attacking into this. If you have mana open, even if it's just 2 mana, you could play something and it just gets +2/+0. So I think this is a B. The fact that it has draw a card on it, I think it just like gives that deck more legs. Because when you're casting your 4 mana spells, you need cheap creatures like this to be able to come down, block, and then fuel your hand. So B for Shanto. I like Shanto. Next up is Tella, Great Sage, which is 3 blue-red for a 3/3 legendary creature, human wizard at rare. It says whenever you cast a non-creature spell, create a 1/1 colorless hero creature token. If 4 or more mana was spent to cast the spell, draw 2 cards. If 8 or more mana was spent to cast that spell, sacrifice Tella, and it deals that much damage to each opponent. Okay, so 5 mana 3/3, not a good body. We're kind of used to that in Izzet, but still, it should be said. Whenever you cast any spell, you get a 1/1 token. Love that already. The 5 mana is pretty rough to swallow with that, but the fact that you get as many tokens as you want when you cast bunches of spells, very exciting. And it still has the ability where if you spend 4 or more mana, you get to draw 2 cards. The other thing I didn't mention with the 4 or more mana thing is that there are a lot of flashback cards in the set. So the front part of the card, like the first part of the card, that when you cast it from your hand, might not be 4 mana. But when you cast it from your graveyard, you did spend 4 or more mana to flash it back. So it does trigger all these abilities. So that's one thing to remember. And I forgot to mention that earlier. But I think just the fact that you're casting spells and getting tokens to chump is really huge with this. And then maybe you have a giant flashback spell or a huge saga or whatever, where he just blows up and deals a bunch of damage to your opponent. That's just kind of extra. I think that last one doesn't really matter that much. But the first two, like every once in a while you draw a card, but mostly you draw 2 cards actually. Yeah. Every once in a while you draw 2 cards, but most of the time you're just making a bunch of 1/1 fodder to block to stay alive till you find the sweet spell that kills them. I like this card. I still think it's probably just like a B. I'm going to say B plus just because the tokens it can make is like crazy. But yeah, like probably just a B plus with this card. Not really into the A range because you need a whole deck to lift it up. But I'd be pretty happy to have this card in my deck. Yeah, I think he also looks dope as hell. Classic wizard, love it. Next up, we have Vivv Orneteer. This is 1 blue-red for a 0/3 legendary creature wizard at Mythic. It has an ability. It costs 0. And you could add X mana of any combination of blue and or red, where X is Vivv's power, which is 0. Activate only during your turn and only once each turn. Sweet. So that ability looks horrible. It can't do anything on its own. You play this card, you need equipment or something to make its power bigger. It is lucky that there is more to this card. So it says, whenever you cast a non-creature spell, put a +1/+1 counter on Vivv, and it deals 1 damage to each opponent. Boom! There you go. That's what we needed. So now this card wants to play lots of little cantrips. 3 mana 0/3 that just wants to play tons of stuff. You get lots of little counters and you get to ping your opponent. I think that's the most important part of this card is that you ping your opponent. And as well as Vivv so what you get to do is you get to play your cheaper spells and Vivv grows and grows and grows. And then you get to make a bunch of mana to play anything afterwards. So Vivv seems pretty strong. I know people are talking about this in Constructed and in Commander and CDH and stuff like that. But I also think in Limited, you can build a deck around it. It's significantly weaker than other ones. So I'm still going to give this like a B plus, but I think that the spells deck is super happy with it. It does a lot of the stuff you want, except for draw cards. It doesn't draw any cards, which makes it a bit harder to be super excited about. But if you have enough flashback stuff, being able to play all of these, make a big enough blocker, ping your opponent while you're doing it, and then randomly just be able to play giant spells. Like, you get to, this card helps you double spell on turns you can't normally double spell. And I think that's really, really great. Double spelling is like the backbone of limited, and this card helps you do it on a bunch of turns that you normally can't. Like, this will help you play multiple 4 or more, like 4 mana spells a turn. Which is, like, it has that potential, which I think these decks are going to need to be able to brawl. And the fact that it doesn't go in any other deck, it just really wants to be in the spells deck, and that's it, is great. So Vivv, still like a B+, but I do like Vivv. I'm not going to say anything bad about Vivv. Vivv's cool. Vivv's great. Yeah, I hope to play this card as well. Next up, we have Golgari, which is black and green. So our first card is X Death Void Warlock, which is 1 black-green for a 3/3 legendary creature Spirit Warlock at uncommon. It says when X Death enters, you gain 3 life. And at the beginning of your end step, if there are 6 or more permanent cards in your graveyard, transform X Death. X Death turns into Neo X Death, Dimension's End, which is a star 3 legendary creature Spirit Avatar with Trample. Good. It says its power is equal to the number of permanent cards in your graveyard. Okay, so it for sure is a 6/3 because it won't flip unless you have 6 or more permanent cards in your graveyard. The weirdest thing about this is that it doesn't enable itself. This is a payoff for being able to put permanent cards in your graveyard. To be fair, the game kind of does that on its own. The other thing about this card is that when it flips, you do get 1 big attack, but 3 toughness is really low. And it's most likely going to trade off with something. The gaining the life doesn't seem that exciting. It could do some stuff, but I don't know. It doesn't draw you cards. It doesn't make tokens. It only gains you life when it enters. It flips into a creature that will trade off. I think you're going to lose to this sometimes, but ultimately it seems fine. It's just kind of a big dumb thing. So I'm going to give this like a C. Like, X-Death is just not that exciting. Neo X-Death is not that exciting. It's like a C. Like, I'll put it in my deck, but I'm not going to be extremely excited about it. Sorry, Final Fantasy V fans. I'm not in love. Next up, we have Cloud of Darkness, which is 2 black, green, green for a 3/3 legendary creature avatar at uncommon. It has flying, and it also has Particle Beam. When Cloud of Darkness enters, target creature and opponent controls gets -X until end turn, where X is the number of permanent cards in your graveyard. This is a payoff for that. A 5 mana 3/3 with flying that kills something. I like this significantly more. This is a B-level card. The double green is hard. I don't like the double green part, but the fact that it just enters, it's a flyer, it kills something else. This is a payoff for having permanent cards in your graveyard. The other one feels like I'd rather have like my 3 drops be getting cards into my graveyard, and then my bigger stuff comes down and just kills them. So this is like a B level card. I'm happy with Cloud of Darkness, and yeah, this is what I'm looking for in that deck, for sure. Next up, now, I know that this is just a mono black card, but it is paired with something else. So I've decided to put it here with the other card, which you can see kind of in the background is that creature right there. But this is Fang, Fearless Ulsi, I believe. It's 2 and a black for a 2/3 legendary creature human warrior at uncommon. Whenever 1 or more cards leave your graveyard, you may draw a card and you lose 1 life. This ability triggers only once each turn. Whenever 1 or more cards leave your graveyard, okay, that doesn't happen all that often, but you get to draw a card and lose a life. Losing a life we're not excited about, but you do get to draw a card. That's awesome. It also says it melds with Vanille Cheerful Ulsi. So we're going to go look at Vanille, which is 3 and a green for a 3/2 legendary creature human cleric at uncommon. It says when Vanille enters, mill 2 cards, then return target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. So we know that Fang comes down on 3. Then on 4, we get to play Vanille. We get to mill 2 cards, return a permanent card from our hand. We get to draw a card and then lose a life from this card. Everything feels awesome. And then it says at the beginning of your first main phase, if you both own and control Vanille and a creature named Fang, you may pay 5 mana. It's 3 black-green. And if you do, exile them, then meld them into Ragnarok Divine Deliverance, which is this card. These are the backs of both of those cards smushed together. And this is a 7/6 legendary creature beast avatar with vigilance, menace, trample, reach, and haste. And it says when Ragnarok dies, destroy target permanent and return target non-legendary permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. This seems like a pretty good payoff. I love that they have the meld cards at uncommon in this set. They haven't done that in quite a while. And having meld cards at that like level is nice because oftentimes they're like mythic and you're just never going to get both of them in draft. But this, you could easily get both of these uncommons. You could get this one, you could get this one. I think that, this is kind of a weird thing because you obviously don't have to play them together to get this. This is on 3, this is on 4. Unfortunately, we need to know that on 5, like the following turn, we don't actually get to trigger this. Because it says at the beginning of your first main phase, and we won't have played our 5th land until that main phase. So we lose the time window that we get to play this. So we actually don't get to meld it into turn 6 to get this card. But turn 6, we get a 7/6 vigilance, menace, trample, reach, haste creature. And if they are able to, gang block it, it dies, destroys something else, then you return something else from your graveyard to your hand. It doesn't return either of these legendary creatures. But all in all, I think this meld is quite strong and quite good, and I'm happy with the other cards just being played. So I am going to kind of, obviously they get a lot stronger when they're together. I think they're both closer to Bs when they're together. But of the cards, I think Fang is probably the better one. It's cheaper. It's a 2/3, which I really enjoy that stat line. And then it draws cards. And there's a lot of other ways to have cards leave your graveyard for different reasons. So I think this will be able to, you could draw a lot more cards with this. This one enables the other one. It's a 3/2, which trades a little bit more. And for 4 mana, you're a little bit more upset about trading with this card. But milling something and getting something back, the fact that it's expensive is hard because you're not realistically returning something that you get to play immediately. So that's kind of hard. But together it gets a lot stronger. So I think that Fang is a B. I think that Vanille is a C level card. And then together they're probably pushed up a little bit to both a little bit higher B range. Because if you get to meld them anytime, like this is a crazy card. Like trade with a bunch of stuff, kill something, return something to your hand. Like you're so up on cards. It's crazy. So that's a kind of a hard one to explain and to rate because there's so many different weird factors. But Fang's a B, Vanille's a C, and then together they're like Bs. So, and maybe Fang's like a B+. But yeah, great cards. I need to do this in draft. I have to do it. All right, next up we have our last Golgari card, which is Genova, Ancient Calamity, which is 2 black-green for a 1/5 legendary creature alien at rare. All right. It says, at the beginning of combat on your turn, put a number of +1/+1 counters equal to Genova's power on up to 1 target other creature. That creature becomes a mutant in addition to its other types, and whenever a mutant you control dies during your turn, you draw cards equal to its power. All right. This is very strong. So you may look at it, 4 mana 1/5. That's not very exciting. And you put 1 +1/+1 counter on a creature, it turns into a mutant. Okay. But the fact that you get to do the counters thing every single turn, and like if this isn't checked, like you have to put it on another creature. So that's the hardest part about this card. But everything else is so sweet. You want to be trading off with your mutants because then you get to draw a bunch of cards. This card with summons is really good because you get to put counters on your summons, and then they attack. Either your opponent's going to trade with that creature, or they just take the damage. And the creatures are going to die anyway at some point. So all of a sudden, you just get to you get to draw a ton of cards. Like, a lot of them are like at least 3 power. So you're drawing like 4 cards per summon. You get to put the counters all over the place. I don't know. Genova seems very strong, specifically in that like summon situation. But besides that, do not underestimate just putting counters around and being just a 1/5 that blocks really well. I don't know. Counters, drawing cards, this seems really good. As long as you have any other creature on the battlefield, which isn't always, but if you have anything going on at all, this is like an A-. A- for Genova. I like this a lot. Super strong, super cool, sweet card. Yeah. Next up, we're going into Boros, which is red and white. So this is Giot, King of the Dwarves. It's red-white for a 1/1 legendary creature, Dwarf Noble at uncommon. It has double strike, which I always love seeing double strike on a 1/1. It's just so fun and so funny. Whenever Giot or another dwarf you control enters, and whenever an equipment you control enters, you may discard a card. If you do, draw a card. All right, so the dwarf kind of thing that cares about artifacts and equipment, specifically equipment in this situation, which we do have a lot of equipment. There's a lot of job select stuff, so it's not like this is impossible. And having a card that cares about equipment with double strike, that's always, we already kind of know that's good. The rummaging part is really helpful. It's like a 2-mana 1/1 that rummages, and then it kills, like it just eats X1s for days. I don't know how many more dwarves there are in the set. I don't think it's a ton. We're probably just looking at the equipment part of this card. And looting when you play equipments is nice. That is helpful. So just that being around is good. This wears equipment pretty well. All in all, it's probably looking more like a C. It can be hard to make sure to be able to play this card on time, because you really want this on turn 2. If you play this anywhere after that, you're pretty unhappy. So the hard to cast part about this card goes a long way. And I think I'm a little bit more excited about some of the equipment cards that like auto equip stuff, as opposed to something like this that kind of just like rummages through your deck. I think it'll be helpful. I don't think it's fantastic though. I do love the word double strike though. That does pique my interest. So there's something there. I'm gonna give it a C and see if it can go up and up and up. I would like this to be better, but I'm just giving it a C. Next up we have Zidane, Tantalus Thief, which is 3 red-white for a 3/3 legendary creature, human mutant scout at uncommon. It says, when Zidane enters, gain control of target creature and opponent controls until end of turn. Untap it. It gains lifelink and haste until end of turn. And whenever an opponent gains control of a permanent from you, you create a treasure token. This card is bizarre. 5 mana 3/3 active treason that gives it lifelink. All right, so you get to steal one of your opponent's creatures. You get to give it lifelink and attack. If you have a way to sacrifice that creature, of course this gets stronger, but if you don't have a way to sacrifice it, you get a treasure token, which is fine. I think it's fine. There will be games where this like cheeses you out of the game and you're pissed. But the active treason thing outside of black is usually pretty bad. And you know, of course, if this is the last spell that you play and you win the game because of it, that's amazing. The lifelink is helpful because then, you know, you don't just die in the crackback immediately. If you have a instant speed way to sacrifice it, there are a couple ways to do, or not just instant speed, but a very cheap way, like something that costs 1 or 0 mana. This card gets a lot better. There are ways to do that. I don't know if it's actually in the red and the white deck, though. So, I'm sorry, Zidane. You're probably just like a C as well. Kind of like, it's a fine card. It could be even worse. It could be like a C-. I don't know how excited we are about playing this card. Yeah, there's probably an upside there. I'm not going to give it a C minus. It's just a C. But both of these Boros cards are not really piquing my interest right now. Kind of upset by that. Next up, we have Joshua, Phoenix's Dominant, which is 1 red-white for a 3/4 legendary creature, human noble wizard at rare. It says when Joshua enters, discard up to 2 cards, then draw that many cards. Well, a 3-mana 3/4... that's a good body. And you get to draw cards. Like, this is great. Discard whatever you want. There's even more text to this card. You can pay 3 red, white, and tap it to exile Joshua, then return it to the battlefield transformed under its owner's control. Activate only as a sorcery. It turns into Phoenix, Warden of Fire, which is a 4/4 flying lifelink legendary enchantment creature, Saga Phoenix. So it's a 4/4 flying lifelink creature. It has 3 chapters to this saga. The first one is Rising Flames, which says Phoenix deals 2 damage to each opponent. Don't forget, Phoenix is dealing the damage, so you are gaining the lifelink from that. So that's really nice. You could do that both times. And then the final chapter says Flames of Rebirth. It says return any number of target creature cards with total mana value 6 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield, then exile Phoenix and then return it to the battlefield face up, where you get to discard cards and draw cards again. I really like these types of, like, there's a bunch of cards that are like this, and this one is so very exciting here. So Phoenix, let's see. As far as grades go, I think this is quite good. It seems strong. I like the fact that you're gaining a bunch of life in this aggressive deck. I like that it wants you to trade off your creatures so that you get stuff back. It also could be the cards that you just discarded to draw more cards, knowing that you're going to get them back at some point. You get to deal, like, hopefully at least 8 damage with this card before it flips over again. And the actual flipping ability is not that expensive. Like the 5 mana to flip this is not that hard. So I don't know. I think I like Joshua a lot. I'm going to give Joshua like an A. This is really what we want our deck to be about. We're getting different cards. We have a big body just to sit there and block if we have to. And then we get to flip it into this thing that deals a bunch of damage, gains a bunch of life, and gets stuff back. Like, all great things. A for Phoenix. Love that. Love it. All right, next up we have Lightning, Army of One, which is 1 red white for a 3/2 legendary creature, human soldier at Mythic. It has First Strike, Trample, and Lifelink. It has an ability called Stagger. It says whenever Lightning deals combat damage to a player until your next turn, if a source would deal damage to that player or permanent the player controls, it deals double that damage instead. Okay. So this card is really, really interesting. 3 mana 3/2 First Strike, Trample, Lifelink, all really strong. The First Strike obviously is the most important part about this card because Lightning gets to deal the damage first. So we get to deal damage to our opponent, and then it procs. We get the whole, every time we deal more damage to our opponent or a permanent, we get to do double that damage. So Lightning comes in, hits for whatever damage you can get in. If they block with a 2/2, you still get to deal trample damage. So you still get to hit your opponent. You still get to get Stagger to go off. And then the rest of your team comes in afterwards and deals a bunch of damage. This card seems pretty strong. Like, this is really scary. You need to kill this card. And yeah, if you have any sort of burn spells, you get to hit your opponent with it, or your opponent's creatures, because it cares about permanents too. Like, all this stuff kind of wrapped together gives this card like an A. Like, it's a 3 mana crazy threat that makes all your other cards really strong. Lightning looks so good. What a sweet card. These ones are what I want my decks to be doing. The other equipment-y stuff or steely stuff, like all the uncommons, seem like not very exciting. But these last two, like these rares and mythics for Boros, are just scary. They're really scary. Lightning, they're all just awesome. Really, really like it. Very excited. Next up, we have our Simic cards. Never really excited for Simic cards, not gonna lie. But Simic is also the green-blue cards. We have Ignis Scientia. Ignis Scientia. Sure. which is it's a 1 green-blue for a 2/2 legendary creature human advisor at uncommon. It says when Ignis enters, look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may put a land card from among them onto the battlefield tapped. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. All right, so you get to play this, get a card or a land for sure. Basically, out of 6 cards, getting a land is like fairly easy, and then you get to put it on the battlefield. So you're ramping 3-mana 2/2 that ramps. We're already pretty happy with that. There is a situation where you could whiff, but 6 cards I think is enough that you'll probably get something. And then there is an ability that says, I've come up with a new recipe, which is 1 green-blue. You can tap it, exile target card from a graveyard. If it's a creature card that was exiled this way, you create a food token. The funny thing is, I don't think we're super excited about doing the food token part of this. There's a lot of like flashback spells that we're probably more interested in exiling, so our opponent has no way of actually getting them. All in all, this card seems totally fine. The extra exile text at the bottom is just kind of random. It'll come up every once in a while, but really a 3-mana 2/2 that ramps you, and hopefully you get a town, because I know that green blue cares about towns, because it gets like any card is helpful, as opposed to other games or other sets that we've had with a 3-mana 2/2 that goes and gets a land. It's usually a basic land, so this does have the ability to get dual lands from the top of your deck. You just have to cross your fingers it's there. But yeah, that's like a C+. You get to ramp. It'll be helpful in those decks. And the second part of the card is probably just irrelevant. Next up, we have Omega Heartless Evolution, which is 5 green-blue for an 8/8 legendary artifact creature robot at uncommon. It has an ability called Wave Cannon. It says when Omega enters, for each opponent, tap up to 1 target non-land permanent that opponent controls. Put X stun counters on each of those permanents, and you gain X life, where X is the number of non-basic lands you control. All right. So this is a huge payoff for the Towns deck, because obviously it cares about non-basic lands, and all of our non-basic lands are towns, really. It's like kind of the blue-green 5-color deck is like back and swinging in its full force. So you get to tap one of your opponent's things, but put X stun counters on it. So what if you probably have two non-basic lands in your deck on average? This one probably wants to push closer to like 5 at least. So if you get to stun it for 1 turn and you gain 1 life, that's probably the worst case scenario. If you're just tapping something and not stunning it, like that's really bad. But stunning their biggest thing for at least 1 turn, and then we have an 8/8 on our on the battlefield, they probably have to chump with a bunch of the other creatures, and we're pretty happy with that. If you get to stun it for 2 turns, 3 turns, 4 turns, the more you have, the better it is. Gaining the life is just a little bit of gravy, gives you a little bit of a cushion to be able to attack with this card. But all in all, I like this card. I think this is probably it's probably a B. Like, it'll come down, it'll do the thing. It does go specifically in that one deck, but it will affect the board. And if you are kind of light on big splashy things at the end of the game, a 7-mana 8/8 isn't the worst thing in the world. So I like this. It's probably like a B. It will push me into that deck if I see this card for sure. Next up, we have the Wandering Minstrel, which is green-blue for a 1/3 legendary creature human bard at rare. It says lands you control enter untapped. All right, so all your towns enter untapped. That's actually a big game. We're really happy with that. And it has an ability, the Minstrel's Ballad. It says at the beginning of combat on your turn, if you control 5 or more towns, create a 2/2 2/2 elemental creature token that's all colors. Okay, so at combat, 5 towns is a lot of towns. You need to get so many towns in your deck to make sure that you have 5 for this card. But creating a 2/2 every single turn, if you have that is big game. Big game. And it just keeps going. It doesn't care. It's not like every time you play a town, you make a creature. It's just every turn at combat, you make a 2/2. Very, very good. If this format is going to go long, this card could be really strong. And then it also has on top of that an overrun ability. Well, I guess it's not really an overrun ability, but it's very close. You can spend 3 white, blue, black, red, green for an ability that says other creatures you control get +X until end turn, where X is the number of towns you control. So hopefully it's 5, because that would be the whole point. You turn all your 2/2s into 7/7s. Your opponent's pretty screwed at that point, I'm pretty sure. And this is a huge payoff for being the Towns deck. Like, you're getting cardboard, they're coming into play untapped. It's cheap enough that you actually get to use those cards. Like, I think the Wandering Mistral is actually quite good. This is probably closer, like, it's a build around, like, it's probably a build around A-. I think it's going to be possible. We're just going to give this guy an A-. Like, I had this pretty low, and I'm turning around on it. Yeah, Wandering Minstrel could be pretty strong. Obviously, you need to build the deck around it. Like, it needs the entire deck. In pack 3, you see this card, you're not going to be taking it. But, like, if you see this pack 3, it's probably like a C-. Like, it's bad. But if you see this early enough that you might be able to do the deck, this is a great card for that deck. Like, this... I like this card a lot if you're able to do the whole thing. So, yeah. A-, but also a C-. You know? Build around A-. If you can't do any of that stuff, it's just kind of like it's actually probably a D. It's probably like almost a 0. So, it's that balance of it's either amazing or it's terrible. But, hey, you're not going to put this card in your deck if you're not in the deck, right? So, in that deck, it's like an A-. Great. Next up, we are in the 3 color cards, or 3 or more color cards, that is. This card is called Noctis, Prince of Lucius, which is 1 white, blue, black for a 4/3 legendary creature, human noble at rare. It has lifelink, so a 4 mana 4/3 lifelink. Okay. And says you may cast artifact spells from your graveyard by paying 3 life in addition to paying their other costs. If you cast a spell this way, the artifact enters with a finality counter on it. Okay. It is harder to play 3 colors in this format, I'm guessing. And a lot of times in the most recent sets, when we have just kind of random 3 color cards that are thrown into the set, they don't tend to do all that much. But this is a card that does want to be played later. Like, you're not super stoked on playing this card on turn 4. Like, you don't have to, right? This card doesn't need to be cast on turn 4. You'd kind of like to cast this on, like, turn 7, where you get to play... like this, and then play an artifact from your graveyard. Maybe a job select card or something, so you have another creature or whatever. And paying the life doesn't hurt that much because this has lifelink. If you get 1 card back, this card's great. I think this probably, like, you know, 3 colors hurts it a little bit. It's not an A. I'm going to give this like a B+. But I do like cards like this. You still have to pay for the costs of the card in your graveyard, but if you're in any sort of cheaper, like, artifacty stuff, this seems kind of exciting. And if you have a bomb equipment and you're worried about it dying, this card's going to be great for it. And it also holds the sword pretty well. It looks like he's got a chainsaw or something. So, Noctis, B+. Yeah, pretty sweet. Next up, we have Choco, Seeker of Paradise, which is 1 green, white, blue for a 3/5 legendary creature bird at rare. It says whenever 1 or more birds you control attack, look at that many cards from the top of your library. You may put one of them into your hand, then put any number of land cards from among them onto the battlefield tapped and the rest into your graveyard. It also has landfall. It says whenever a land you control enters, Choco gets +1/+0 until end of turn. All right. So this card is going to be really exciting. There is like this landfall theme. Now, a lot of the landfall theme there's a bit of it in the Grul stuff, but there are a bunch of just like chocobos around that all have landfall. Like every chocobo counter or token, that is, sorry. Every chocobo token's like a 2/2 that gets +1/+0 whenever a land enters. And this one just says, like, when you attack with this, you get to look at the top card of your library. You can either put it into your hand, or if it's a land, you put it onto the battlefield tapped, and this gets +1/+0. But if you have a bunch of birds, you have a bunch of cards that make tokens for chocobos, or there's a bunch of other birds in the set, you attack with a bunch of them, you get to put all of the lands, any number of lands that you have, goes on the battlefield. They all get landfall triggers over and over and over again. The whole stack gets huge, and you're drawing a bunch of cards. A 4-mana 3/5 that draws a card when it attacks or gets bigger. I don't know, you kind of just want to draw the cards most of the time. And if you don't want them, you can also just put them in your graveyard. This just it looks awesome. It looks really, really awesome. I like this card so much. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. Like 4 mana 3/5 attack draw card is just fantastic. This is like an A. I will be pushing to try to get, like, you want lots more birds, but just being able to like attack and draw a card is just gonna be good. I don't know. Okay, we can pull back to an A- if you don't have all the birds, but if you have more birds, I think the birds are gonna be good. And this card seems amazing, especially because birds will care about getting the right lands into play to play this card. Kind of weird that it's not Grul, but I don't know. Choco looks sweet. I really like Choco a lot. Next up, we have Sin, Spira's Punishment, which is 4 black, green, blue for a 7/7 legendary Leviathan avatar at rare. It has flying. It says, whenever Sin enters or attacks, exile a permanent card from your graveyard at random, then create a tapped token that's a copy of that card. If the exiled card is a land card, repeat this process. Okay, so you can't miss with this card. It's a 7 mana 7/7 with flying, and when it enters, you get a permanent back from your graveyard. For sure, you get a permanent card back. Like, it's only picking from the permanent cards at random, and if you hit a land, you just do it again. And then if you just hit a bunch of lands, you just ramp a bunch, and then you still are going to get something at the end of it. Like, you're always going to hit a card. Like, hopefully it's a creature, but it could be any permanent. It could be a saga. It could be, like, hopefully not artifacts necessarily, but it's going to hit something. So the fact that it comes down and you always hit something, and maybe you ramp a bunch first and then hit something, I don't know. And it doesn't even punish you for playing, like, spells, right? Because it's only going to be picking from the permanent cards. So, I don't know. This is awesome. This, like, it just seems really, really awesome. Obviously, it doesn't go infinite forever because it's going to exile the permanent thing. But I don't know. There isn't really mass bounce stuff. Like, you do get screwed by bounce spells, but besides that, this just seems awesome. This seems so good. This is like an A+. Like, I would be really happy to have this at the top end of my deck and just get tons of shit. Like, this, it just does it forever. It just keeps going. I don't know. It seems really good. It's free. All the stuff. Like, get to 7 mana. Boom. Go for it. This represents Sin quite well. Really like this card. Damn. All right, next up, this is also our last card for all the multicolored cards, and it is a banger. We have Kefka, Court Mage, which is 2 blue, black, red for a 4/5 legendary creature, human wizard at Mythic. It says whenever Kefka enters or attacks, we got Titan text again, each player discards a card, including yourself. You have to do this too. Whenever you draw a card for each card type among cards, then you draw a card for each card type among cards discarded this way. So you discard a card, you're always going to draw at least one card, and if it was your card type was different than your opponent's card type, you get to draw another card. So 5 mana, 4/5, enter, draw a card, maybe draw 2 cards, but you have to discard something. Or like if you have nothing in your hand, your opponent discards something and you draw a card. That's nice. The one thing is that if you're both empty, like you don't have any cards in your hand, you don't get to draw anything. But still, like, that seems pretty good. You're ripping cards out of your opponent's hand and you get to keep attacking them. Or sorry, when you attack them, you continue to do it, so they can't really hold up stuff very easily. That seems nice. And it also has more text. You can spend 8 mana, and each opponent sacrifices a permanent of their choice. The of their choice thing is kind of confusing to me, just because each opponent sacrifices a permanent. It means the same thing, but whatever. You get to transform Kefka and activate only as a sorcery. Kefka turns into Kefka, Ruler of Ruin, which is a 5/7 legendary creature artifact wizard with flying. And says whenever an opponent loses life during your turn, you draw that many cards. So if they don't have any flyers, you get to draw 5 cards when this thing hits your opponent. That's so many cards that I'm kind of worried about decking myself by flipping this card. Like, that's that's a lot of cards. That is so many cards. Especially the flavor text is funny. The end draws near. It's like, I'm going to feel that way when I'm drawing 5 cards. Like, oh shit. Like, you attack with everybody. They hope, like, try to survive at 1 life. You draw, like, your whole deck and you just die. Like, this card scares me because I could easily lose the game by milling myself. But also, if you have a 5/7, you hit them 1 time, you can draw 5 cards. They're probably just dead at that point. But it doesn't have an easy out of getting rid of this card. So just be careful. Be careful. Make sure you do just kill your opponent. But still, 5 mana, 4/5, discarding cards, you're probably going to have enough to get rid of a bunch of your opponent's good stuff. And as we've seen, a lot of the good stuff in the set are like really expensive cards. So I don't know, Kefka seems like an A. I don't know if it's a strictly A+, just because it's hard to cast. But I still think this card's really strong. And you're probably going to be able to make them sacrifice something, transform this. It also transforms, it doesn't exile. So you transform it, you get to attack with it immediately. So 8 mana, they sacrifice something, you attack, smash them for 5, draw 5 cards. At that point, they kind of have to kill it. And so you're fine, you drew 5 cards, who cares? This card's phenomenal. Like, it's so good. So good. Gosh. Man, this set is sweet. I'm very excited, and I can't wait to play with these cards. But tell me what you think about all these and all of my ratings in the comments below. It means a lot, and obviously, you know, we all have kind of preconceived feelings about all the different cards and the things that we see. So tell me what you think. But anyway, folks, I've been Regular Zach. This was my multicolored limited set review. Check on all the other ones for all the different colors, the color list, and the bonus sheet to figure out which cards you should be drafting in your limited decks. But until next time, folks, thank you so much, and I'll see you later. Bye.